We are the Church of the Larger Fellowship, the Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love.
For over 85 years, the ministries of the Church of the Larger Fellowship have circled the globe and crossed the walls of prisons. We are a spiritual lifeline for our over 2,000 members in prison, who are also connected to individual Unitarian Universalists through our letter writing ministry.
In our online community, we offer weekly worship, classes, and groups. Our monthly magazine, Quest, supports the spiritual lives of thousands around the globe. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance.
We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship.
We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of the Voices of Unitarian Universalism, known affectionately as The View.
The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective.
Since 2013, we have gathered every Thursday from September to June to welcome guests from around the world.
Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond.
We hope that today's show inspires you. We hope it builds your faith and gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life.
Welcome to The View. Okay, we're going to try this again. I'm going to get DC on. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy Gregorian New Year for those who celebrate. It is now 2026, and already the theme of 2026 is what the actual fuck. Did not have to wait long. I did that.
Wow, 12:03.
I hate I have the absolute privilege of being one half of the lead ministry team of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, along with Reverend Dr. Michael Tino, who is out today. And today we have an amazing guest who I will introduce in just a couple of minutes, a documentary filmmaker who created a film about youth ministry, Unitarian Universalist youth ministry. So that is exciting. But first, we're going to try to do a quick roundup, but I will introduce I will ask our beautiful co-hosts, Reverend Dante Hilliard and Reverend DC Fortune, to say hello. I'm also in Seattle, Washington, land of the Coast Salish people, where it has been cold and rainy because it's Seattle, fucking Washington. Dante.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Happy. Somebody told us it was 2026, but that's not everybody's cultural understanding of what it is. But another turning of the wheel. We'll celebrate a new turning of the wheel. I am in Chicago, Illinois, the land of the Council of Three Fires. And I'm exhausted already. I feel like I saw a meme on the internet the other day, and it was so true. And if you grew up with Black people, or if you had a Black mama, you will understand, because what the woman says, she says, I'm treating 2026 like my Black mama taught me. I'm not touching nothing. I'm not asking for nothing. I'm not looking. I'm going to stop making noises before you give me something to cry about. I'm going to sit down and mind my business.
Don't touch nothing.
I can't do this again. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
DC. Amen, Reverend Dante.
Oh, God bless us, everyone. I'm Reverend DC Fortune. I'm here in Auburn, Maine, on the banks of the Androscoggin River. So named for the people who were originally here before the colonizers came and ran them out. Also the land of the Penobscot Nation and all of its affiliate groups. Let's see. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, yeah. The world's on fire.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
where do we begin? Taking over, invading a sovereign nation and kidnapping the dictator and his wife, and apparently beating her up. Nicolas Maduro and his wife. She showed up in New York City court with a black eye, and then
with a bastard of a black guy too.
what the fuck? And then we have
Jesus.
what happened in Minneapolis yesterday. This
Right.
was not ICE's first murder. ICE has been murdering people. And yesterday it was caught on camera, a woman leaving. And of course, the administration told a big fat lie and made up a story. And it's beyond, I don't even know at this point. I don't know what I don't
what
have
the worst part is they're trying to call her a domestic terrorist. Because they're saying that she was trying to use her vehicle to run over ICE agents.
Which we can see is a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Child, anybody can see. Yes.
And it's, we're in that horrible 1984 world where it's don't believe your eyes.
You're
believe
lying.
what I tell you.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't believe your lying eyes. Believe what I tell you.
Renee Nicole Good. I want to name her. She was, I think, 37, left a 6-year-old, was with her partner. And the partner was in the car. They had both just dropped off the child.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that. I didn't know her partner was there. Fuck.
That's what the report, I mean, I could be wrong, but that was one of the reports I read. So, I want to say this. I was telling Dante before we came on air. Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old sitting on a swing and was murdered by a cop.
Yep.
And that cop never, ever, ever saw justice. Came out of his car and within 2 seconds shot at a black boy sitting on a swing and murdered him.
Yeah.
And I'm not diminishing anybody's murder. What I want to say is at this point in time, we are, what is it? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, black and white people are what is it? Connected in the fabric of destiny. Like there is no such thing anymore as excusing state sanctioned violence. And I think that's happened for a long time. I think even liberal white people told themselves a story that somehow this is not about them. But is the facade finally gone?
I think people look for a reason to say, oh, that can't happen to me.
Yep.
That's,
far away.
Those people who are violent, those people who are angry, those people like, I'm a good person. And that it's like believing that having the truth on your side will keep you out of jail.
So let us pray for the people, not only of Minneapolis, but all over the country. The next few months, according to Heather Cox Richardson, and I'm not sure how she became like the people. That's who people tell me to go listen to.
Fascinating.
But she apparently saying the next 5 months, she's, I guess, a historian, are critical. And so, hey, folks in the U.S., we need to keep being assholes in a way that, we need to be a thorn in the side of the state because nobody wants this. Even people who think they want it, I don't think, this. They
want it until it hits them. They want it until it hits them.
Yeah, I don't know. This is all so fucking absurd. In the meantime, Israel's still committing a genocide in Gaza and now the West Bank. Yep. So the things are getting, which were already bad because a genocide's happening, is getting worse.
Right.
in the West Bank and Gaza. So let's just all, and Congo is still genocide there, and Sudan. So humanity, let's get our shit together. And with that, we're going to bring our guest on.
Talk about young people, the youth.
We're going to talk about investing in young people.
Yes.
And what happened with Unitarian Universalism. So I'm going to bring on, again, I'm doing tech, so this is super fun. I'm going to bring on Lindsay Caddle LaPointe. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Uniquely blends art, technology, and holds a BA in dance performance from Roger Williams University and an MFA from the Ohio State University's Department of Dance. In 2010, Lindsay founded Linden Tree Productions, LTP, providing video support to artists. Yay, always support artists.
Yep.
And you worked with the institutions like the Boston Center for Arts and the Landmarks Orchestra. And you've created other documentaries such as Making Milltown that aired on PBS Maine. I love Maine, one of the places I love, and DC's here from Maine, which won a gold award from Spotlight Documentary Film Awards. You've taught dance at various universities, and you are a dedicated collaborator with Peter DeMuro, public displays of motion performing at New England venues such as the Isadora Stewart. So Lindsay, you are here today because you created a documentary called Why Are You You? And I watched it. So yay, thank you for giving us a preview. It is about the youth. Wow, it was literally Why Are You You? So tell us about Why Are You You? How this film came about. Because you do have former President Reverend Bill Sinkford, whose administration dismantled the Continental Youth Work. So start with how this happened, how this began, and welcome to The View.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So this all started in the winter of 2021. We were still deep in the pandemic, and like my bio says, I am a dancer. I support artists, and really not much was going on at the time. And so I started kind of looking towards other interests in my life. I grew up Unitarian Universalists, and I was on a Zoom call with my two good friends that I grew up with, and we just started talking about, well, what was that Why Are You You program? And it was, the acronym was the Y, the R, the UU, Young Religious Unitarian Universalists. And we were lucky enough to have gone through this program in the late 90s, and which was kind of like at the peak. It started in 83, and then it had its sunset in 2008. So we just started talking about it, and I just could not sleep that night. And that night I made a survey, and I just popped it up online. And then we just got flooded with responses, and we call it a tidal wave that came into our lives. We were just following it. And,
what was the survey question? I'm curious what the survey question was.
It was very simple. It was, what years did you go, were you in Why Are You You? We say, if you can describe to somebody who wasn't in it, what would you say? What else was on there? What was your favorite memory of a worship? Because that was very strong. We may have talked about songs. We asked about songs, maybe games, just sort of general things. We just wanted to get an idea of where people's memories were and how it was, still being held really close to them. And the line that came up the most was, "This program saved my life." And so we're like, we have to do something with this. So yeah.
So you were surprised by the sheer volume of responses you got?
Yeah, I was. I think it ended up being around 300, which to me seemed wonderful. So yeah. And it was from all over, and people were sharing it with other people, which started to get people to connect with people who they grew up with. And so it was such a treat to see all those responses come in.
And how did you go from there to the movie?
Yeah, so I knew I couldn't make the film without my very good friend who I grew up with named Don McKechnie. And and she's like, Lindsay, I don't make films. I'm like, but you have the knowledge and you have such great ideas and leadership. And she's a director of youth ministries at the Barnstable Church in Massachusetts. So I was like, no, I need you. And then I pulled in my friend Naomi Cooker, who I have made other documentaries with, who was giving us an outside view. She grew up a PK preacher's kid in the Methodist Church. And so we really needed that outside view because we didn't want to be really stuck in our bubble. So we needed, yeah. And honestly, we took it one person at a time. We took that survey. We started with Julianne Silberman Bunn because she was close enough to us. And then, Julianne would go, oh, you should go talk to this. And somebody else would say, you should talk to, And so we ended up going really all over the country. And we ended up one trip to Canada because at the time the program was continental. We went to Atlanta, we went to Baton Rouge, we went to Los Angeles and Portland, and whenever there was a General Assembly, it was great because we could get a lot of people, and we would set our hotel room up as a studio, and we would schedule folks, and we would bring them in and talk to them, and we needed to talk to a lot of people in order to know really what the story was going to be and how it was going to unfold, and so we just took it one person at a time, and we ended up with, I think the final number was for the movie was 66 people we interviewed, which of course you cannot put all 66 in the film. And so, so we ended up getting 28 people in the film, which is still a lot for a documentary to be featuring that many people. But we just wanted to show how many people it impacted. And what's funny is we kept thinking about the structure of the film as a youth conference in itself. And so at the time we called our close groups that we would check in with touch groups that since changed to small groups or whatever, but we called them touch groups. And so we thought of the people that we kept kind of highlighting as our group, our main group. And then the rest were the conference attendees. And so how they would come in and out and offer something and drift away. So yeah, I mean, it got deep. So, yeah.
Well, what was clear was most people's, I think almost everybody, had compelling memories of being in UU Youth. And the point, I think, how you got here is it was disbanded. So if you can talk a little bit about, first of all, getting Reverend Bill Sinkford, former UA president, to agree. Bill's a friend, so I'm glad. And I was very, there was a relief to hear him say it was a mistake, because I don't know that I'd heard him. I mean, not that I taught, I don't shoot the shit with him about youth ministry, but I was like, okay, so Bill understands this. So speak to that. And sorry, Dawn, DC and Dante, I meant to say, Dante, please jump in. I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to mute myself. Go ahead.
So my minister is Reverend Cindy Landrum. And I was like, I'm trying to get in touch with Bill Sinkford, and I just can't find a direct line. I could try to go to where he was in Portland at the time. And she goes, well, I'm on a meeting with him, like once a month. I have his email. Here's his email. And so I think she sent something to him first, and then I reached out. And I mean, it was I had been it was really heavy in my heart of like, how am I going to do this? And by the time I asked him, he's like, sure, I'll meet you. It was so quick. No hesitation. And this was in Portland, Oregon at the General Assembly. And so he came to our hotel, and I had Naomi, who was the outside view, do the interview. She's a journalist. And so I thought it would be just the best, person to do it. It was it was an intense day. It was the day that Roe v. Wade got overturned. And then we talked to him. I had just done a whole movement worship workshop with young people early that morning. So there was a lot around that. And I think that after we interviewed him, actually, even before that, we found colleagues that had worked with him and met them in a lobby in a hotel and said, we're going to be interviewing, help us. What should we do? What should we do? And so that was great. And so we felt prepared. And I actually just listened to his whole interview yesterday, because all these interviews are going to be turned into podcasts. And so everyone can hear the whole thing that everybody has said, because why am I going to keep all this to myself? Right? And so I was just listening to his whole thing, and just he was so grateful to talk to us and to have the opportunity, and you could see that. And yeah, so I mean, and after people knew we had talked to him, they're like, okay, what'd he say? And I'm like, I'm not going to repeat. I'm going to save, first of all, for my movie.
Wait till the damn movie comes in.
And second of all, those are his words. I'm not going to repeat what he's, you need to hear it from him. And so I was very, and that was throughout the whole thing. If you would start an interview, be like, well, what did such and such say? Or and I'm like, well, I don't, what do you think? What's your memory? Because, yeah. So I really, I joke to people, I could have been pretty gossipy through this whole thing. and I wasn't. I took it really seriously. So, yeah.
Lindsay, I'm wondering two things. One, you said one of the most common themes in your data, is that people said this program saved my life. Mm-hmm. So first, I was wondering, how did people understand the salvific, the life-saving component of YRUU? Like, was it something very similar, or was it various things? Like, was there a theme to what was saving, people thought was saving them?
I think that the overall, and this was not true for everybody, but I think that the overall thing that would come up is that people were seen for who they were in that moment. And then the next day, if they wanted to be someone else, they were seen for who they were in that moment. And there's often, if somebody seems to be on the outside, people would check in, right? Even if it was an adult that looked like it was having a harder time. There's a story of a youth going and checking in with that adult. And the adult looking at them being like, what? Why are you checking with me? I'm the adult. Right? And so there was just that community built that way. And if somebody were to share something, it wouldn't be left aside. You would get checked in about it. Someone would come and say, do you want to talk further about it? Or there would be no talking at all. And there would just be this like wonderful group hug that would happen around this particular person that was having a really tough time. So there's not one thing, but yeah, what's interesting too is that some people said that when they would go to these conferences, which usually, typically a conference at a church would be on Friday night and then to Sunday morning, right? And by the time they left, the letdown was too hard for them to go back to their high school, that sometimes they wouldn't even go back to a conference because they didn't want to have that feeling of having to separate it from it. So, I
want to pick up that thread, because I think
conference drop is real.
Conference drop is real. And I think is real. Yeah, to speak to, because I started my path as a faith leader, religious educator in the early 2000s. So I was kind of at the place of where the transition from YRUU is happening to there's no more YRUU. I was actually a UUA employee when it was disbanded. I think what I want to name is, because to your point, not everybody, I mean, the vast majority of people on the documentary like this was life-saving, but it wasn't for everybody. And being a religious educator, working with youth at the time, I didn't grow up UU. I grew up Muslim. And so when I remember being at a service auction in Bridgewood, New Jersey at the UU church, and there were two youth who I could not get to go to youth group. I'm like, hey, youth group, and I'm trying to play it up. And I said, how come you all, don't even want to try it? They're like, we did, and we're too normal. And first of all, what's normal, right? A setting on a dryer. But I understood what they meant. Because one of the things as a religious educator that I observed is when you are in, you're in, and this will save your life, and you are connected, and people know you. But if that's not, like, for whatever reason, if you don't gel with the youth group, especially people involved in YRUU, then you were out. There was no place for you. So I do want to name that, and not even about defending Reverend Bill Sickford, and he didn't do this on his own. I mean, and you talk a little bit about the film, about what congregations were asking for. I do wish there was more nuance in how it wasn't all or nothing. It was rather, what are the ways we can navigate this without just wiping it off the whiteboard, right? But as a religious educator who didn't grow up in YRUU, and I'm a little old, I'm Gen X, so I'm a little older than many of the folks in the film, but I'm of that generation. That was not my experience in growing up. So I came into this as an adult, as a UU. I understood the challenges of YRUU, and I understood the need for, I don't know what the word is. I don't necessarily think it needed to be reformed, but I think it needed to adapt and maybe be responsive. I don't know what word, my words are escaping me right now, but something needed to be different. And I think that's where the missed opportunity was. We went from, oh my gosh, this is, the light and the sun and the moon for certain people, to we're going to take this away because it doesn't work for everybody. Go ahead, Don.
And that is Unitarian Universalism as practiced in the Western world, in my experience.
Say more.
We don't know how to find the fucking middle. We swing from extreme to extreme. It's like, oh, you didn't do anything about sexual misconduct. Now you can't even know people. Like, we swing the pendulum, and it's like, we need to listen to Prophetess India Arihan and get back to the middle. Like, there is a middle.
I mean, I think there, okay, I'm going to pick up that thread, and then Lindsay, I definitely want you to, I think, I hate the word middle only because I think too much of it politically.
No, I'm talking about that political shit.
I know. But I do think, what does repair mean? What does, because listen, when I came to the West Coast, because I was started in the East Coast, now on the West Coast, and I would hear some older youth advisors, people in their 60s and 70s, talk about, youth being caught having sex, and they're youth. So I'm not, no shame. Rather, it's like the adults are like, this, and I'm like, whoa, that is not safe. Like, we have OWL. How are we, like, kind of, and you had some of that in the film about getting condoms and who's getting condoms. And it's how do we create a community that knows how to do repair in a healthy way? My children, who are now adults, my son had a terrible experience with youth group. Neither of my children will ever identify as Unitarian Universalism because of their, my son. My daughter was like, I'm out. But my son had a very harmful experience with youth group and a youth con. And how do we do repair that isn't annihilation, that doesn't have the pendulum swing? I agree with you, Dante. And how do we create community that is inherent in that community is a repair that is humane? Because that was missing. That was freaking, and this was after YRUU. I mean, after whatever it is that was supposed to come after, which I still think we don't know yet.
Lindsay, I was also wondering, given, all of the work that's been done in the Pew survey around religion in the United States, and particularly with the increasing number of people who identify as nuns, non-religious folk, because when I think about the potentials of Unitarian Universalism for the world, I think a lot of the things that get pointed to in that Pew study, if maybe we had a stronger middle ground in Unitarian Universalism, I think we would have such a broad appeal for so many more people, because the things that the people who are identified as nuns talk about is, you know, you can't separate politics from your religion. You can't, you know, I'm not throwing away people. I'm not like, and that's who we are on paper. That's who we are on paper. And so I was just wondering, as you were making or going through this process, if any of that conversation came up around some of the stuff around millennials and zennials and where they are religiously in our culture now compared to kind of what was happening with YRUU.
Well, gosh, we had so many people who are ministers now want to be the ones to talk to us, and we're like, oh, we have too many ministers, you know, because so many of them became ministers to keep going what they grew up with. And then you have that opposite, or like, no, I am estranged from Unitarian Universalism. And so, like you're saying, there's, and oftentimes, I don't know if this even answers your question, but oftentimes, if someone were to go back to a church, there was so much leadership in YRUU that they actually don't know how to just be. And when they go to it, like without, I mean, a lot of us have this, you know, we have to, you know, be involved and be on this committee and that committee, right? And so there is no just going and just sitting and enjoying, because they don't know how to. They don't know how to do that, because they were creating their program. It was youth run. It was they were the ones coming up with the covenant for that particular conference, and you know, that just everything was created in the moment. So yeah, I think a few of those kind of thoughts came up, but not too many for what you were speaking directly to.
But part of the problem was from and please correct me, because from having been kind of in as a religious educator active in Laredo while these conversations were happening, one of the challenges people named is youth knew how to do this on a continental level, and they came back to the congregation. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. And so I think my understanding, and from my perspective, it was, hey, do this in your congregation so that non-binary, trans youth, people can come here and have a place, people part of the LGBTQ community, you know, neurospicy, the whole thing. Folks have a place to connect and be affirmed in the fullness of who they are. That didn't happen. Like, YRUU went away, and then it was like, you know, everybody was kind of looking at each other. So that was, I think, the biggest lament I have is like, okay, well, you wiped the whiteboard away and took it off, but then we didn't have another plan. It was, and that's the part that's like the transition could have been different. But I'm curious what you hope to accomplish with this film. Like, is there I'm glad to hear there's a podcast, because I would love to hear a lot of full interviews, especially Reverend Bill Singford's. And I'm just curious what your vision is for the movie and moving forward.
Yeah, I'll tell you my vision in just a second. But in my experience of having the large continental and then it kind of going down to the local was very strong. It was actually one. So we dedicated the documentary to 3 people. And one of them was Will Nolan. And Will Nolan was a part of my youth group. He was a jock at school, and he was, you know, always, you know, I wouldn't have necessarily have found him in my high school because I wasn't really into sports, but he would come every Sunday to our youth group, and he loved it. And we played soccer, which was a big duct tape ball, and we would get our socks, and we would be terribly playing the soccer ball, you know, and he loved it because sports was what he knew, he loved. And he moved away to Arizona, and shortly after he committed suicide. And so that hit my friend and I really hard. And you know what we did? We knew how to make a memorial service for him. We just knew we had the skills. We pulled the group together and we said, okay, we're going to do this. And we pulled people from our high school who had no affiliation with the UU Church and brought them in. And we lit candles and we talked about his life. And so that was one of the things we both Dawn and I reflected back to. How did we know how to do that? We were 17 years old, right? So for us, it felt really strong going back to the local. I know that wasn't the case of everywhere. Yeah. So we, as we were making this documentary, we realized that we couldn't just make a documentary. So, the same time we premiered the documentary, we published our own mug book. And a mug book would be what you would leave a conference. Someone ran out to Kinko's and would, photocopy it, and you would have the directory of everyone that was at the conference. You could contact them, whatever. So we decided to make our own mug book about the process of making the film. So in it, we have 5 transcribed interviews, fully transcribed. One of them's Bill's, so you could read it. And then we just put like archive things, like what was the structure. We put in curriculum of how to watch the film. If you are a youth, if you're an adult, if you are not a UU. So we decided letters. This person contacted us from Florida and said, I don't use a computer. Can I write you letters? And we said, sure. Just so many wonderful things that we get to put in here. So we did that. As a person, so dyslexia has been in my life forever. And so for me, documentary and visual storytelling is how I can really get information well and give it out. And so, but I wanted to reach the people that like to read and to look at text. So that's where the mug book came in. So then we realized there's no art. So everything you see in the film visually, probably 95% of that came from personal archives.
Oh,
I didn't get anything. Nothing came directly from the UUA. Folks said, hey, I sent a whole box to whoever. Did you come across that? I'm like, no, I don't know where your stuff went. I gave the archives at Harvard, I gave them a year to come find it in storage, whatever they had. And they never got back to me. They were very overwhelmed over there. So I never got a chance to see what they had in storage. Meadville Lombard had a few things they scanned over to me. Otherwise, it was people that, I have that in my basement. I have that in my attic. So we realized that there needed to be an archive. So that's what I'm working on now is another publication that came out was at first it was 3 times a year, twice a year. There was a magazine called Synapse that the youth office would put out. And it would be created from people all over and articles and what was going on. I can only imagine what a synapse would look like today. I just would be so wonderful to see what youth would be talking about for each other, right? And so we found most of those on the Wayback Machine on the internet.
Oh yeah.
And so I pulled them off because I was like, okay, where is this? So I pulled it off, and then I just last week uploaded all the synapse that I have to our website for people to read. I started organizing it. I started to write this one's missing. Do you have it? So we're building an archive together. And then also there are handbooks and handouts they had, and then of course the mug books that people also have saved. So I just wanted to start collecting things for folks because nobody else seemed to have that, which was a struggle in making a documentary.
Lindsay, I spent 8 years at the National Office of the YWCA. And listening to your story about this reminds me that there's some commonalities around youth movements that I'm seeing here, because something very similar happened. YWCA had a very strong young women's division. They had a lot of institutional power. They did a lot of work. And, I wrote about it when I worked for them, so I don't have a problem saying it now. And I think people got really uncomfortable with these super empowered young people.
Yes.
And the power of young women got stripped out of the institutional structure. And the organization got more and more conservative after that happened too. And so it seems like there's also some shared stories that we could probably find around youth movements, particularly where there's an element of justice connected to it. Because I definitely saw it in the work. And I mean, YWCA voted to integrate from the bottom up in 1949 because the youth division introduced a measure on the floor in 1946, right? Like they took all their money out of Chase Manhattan Bank because the young people was like, we're not keeping our money in it. And they haven't divested. So like they made huge impacts. And again, oldest women's social justice organization in our country. So just listening to your story just makes me think how we might want to do some broader storytelling around youth movements and what the impact of those movements on the people. But it reminds me also, as a person who did multicultural affairs work at universities, people talk about access. Just because you give access to people, if you have not prepared the environment for their success, it's not helpful. And so, because part of what I'm saying is I'm seeing these really empowered young people, and it's like nobody is ready for them. I also worked at the University of Wisconsin, where the students are really empowered. They have an associated student government. They can build a building on that campus if it has 1 cent of student money, if the students don't agree. It's like they're very empowered. And it even took me aback because I wasn't used to students who just had so much power and influence. And I do think we have to think about that when we're building these structures for our young people. We also have to build the world around it that has space for these young people to be the brilliant people we've helped create the space for them to become.
Yeah, DC.
This all sounds like there's this. I mean, it's trite. This bumper sticker thing, sort of motto that says, they couldn't wait for me to walk and talk. Now all they want to do is tell me to sit down and shut up. I don't know if you know, Lindsay, I'm on the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, which is the credentialing board for ministers in our association. And on the most recent meeting of the MFC, my particular panel saw 4 candidates, and 2 of them were YRUU youth. Both of them, of course, passed with flying colors. But in part of our conversations, one of the candidates said something really fascinating, which was the UUA has solved its problem with young adult ministry by getting rid of youth ministry.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's sort of what we said. But
I mean,
we were
not wrong, but ouch.
Yeah, but like there was a big truth bomb, like kablooey, like, oh shit, that's real. That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. And none of the people we spoke to were like outwardly really nasty bitter, but there was some grumpiness about there was this wonderful program that worked really well for a lot of people and got trashed. And and here are these marvelous young adults going into ministry, and there's a part of me that thinks that that's happening because they're looking around and saying nobody else is doing this shit, we gotta.
Yeah, I want to name Nicole Thibodeau's comment here. Youth are great at demanding accountability. Adults tend to be really bad at responding to that call. I think.
Ooh,
Hello,
whiz,
another trick. I think I want. Okay. One of the things in the United States that's happening, had been happening, and it in what ways in the U.S., I know we're being very U.S. centric right now, do we demonstrate care for children and youth? The fact that we have not banned guns, where children are being shot up, the campus movements to try to end a genocide early, our babies, we had a foreign leader in our the leader of this genocide come here and call our youth and children terrorists and call them the problem. So this is also like what I think Unitarian Universalism is not separate from the wider culture. And I think the opportunity for us now, because living in nostalgia, and I think, Lindsay, everything you're putting together, and I guess it's going to be on the YRUU. I'm going to put the website up again.
Yes, all on the website. Yeah.
I think is super important. And we now have an opportunity. We not only have ICE raids, we didn't bring up, there's a, I apologize, DC, I'm forgetting the name of the public who published this report saying we are at the first stages of genocide for trans people here in this country. And so we now need to be the people, we being Unitarian Universalism, to support youth now, to say, yeah, this was not handled the way that would have supported youth. It wasn't transformed. It was made gone. What do we do now? Because right now, I really don't buy into the idea that religion's going away. It's not. We need to be connected. I think we worship different things. I don't think religion's going away. It's just not. We are wired, we as a human species, to have some type of religion. So having said that, I feel like, I was watching the film thinking, okay, so how can we support people now, right? The right wing heavily invests in youth, heavily, and they make their ideology a connecting one because people were wired for connection. And so it's amazing to have, I think mostly millennial ministers, and I'm sure some Gen Xers who were in YRUU, but what do we do now? Like truly, and I'm asking this as like somebody who, the CLF, it's like, can we have a Discord channel that is a counter to the incels, and is a counter to people saying the only way you can have an in group is to have an out group? But what would it look like if we were all in the in group, or if there was no groups, if we I don't want to erase people's identity, but if we affirm each other in the fullness of how we show up and who we are, what does that look like?
Lemkin Institute for Prevention, for Genocide Prevention, or Prevention of Genocide or something.
Thank you. I'm going to put that link in the
thank you.
Okay.
Chat. In the chat.
And that's what, the words there.
But here's what happens when we don't pay attention. The Black church saw it with the growth of the Black Lives Matter movement. The young people was like, you motherfuckers are irrelevant. You're not doing the work of justice. So guess what? We're going to go do it. And we're going to do it in the way that we believe it should be done. We're not going to care about your role. And the Black church lost a lot of credibility after the birth of BLM because they took that shit serious. LGBT inclusive, women-centered leadership, rejecting toxic forms of masculinity, and using religious doctrine as an organizing principle for justice movement. Like they took all the stuff they did learn at church, and said, the young people tend to be our prophets. The young people are the ones who tend to remind us of the shit we used to say, but we don't do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I am that again. I think there is so much. Again, as a person who taught at the university, who created my own youth education program. Yeah, the problem is not that the youth don't have the capacity to do the work. The problem is there are very few spaces where they can be those people in this world safely. There are very few places where they can be the people with all these skills and knowledge and ability to know how to, we know what to do with that. We know how to go get our friend out of jail. We know how to, who to put on the front lines. They really should be leading us in a lot of those spaces, but adults don't have the humility.
Humility. What is that you speak of, Reverend Dante? I don't. That needs to be a competency for the MFC. Who said that? We have.
I'll add it to the list.
Add it to the list, Reverend DC. I think, I was really grateful, Lindsay, that you took this on because I didn't realize it started during the pandemic. I thought this was like 10 years in the making, although, gosh, the pandemic started 5 years ago. Wow. What is time? I'm curious. Yeah. What is your hope? What is your vision? Where do you want this to go? What seeds are you hoping to plant doing this?
Yeah. When that question of, what's next, what can we do now it haunts us because we've been living in the past for so long when we just wanted to just kind of show what happened and and so I feel like that's my job right now is just to be like, I just want to show the history and then people can take what they want from it. Yeah, I myself am on the RE committee in my church. I'm the chair, and so I am seeing a building program, and it's wonderful. And I take things that I've learned from what I've heard people say, and I just do the tiniest little things to implement it. So you mentioned, youth empowerment, Youth had a say even at General Assembly, right? They would come up all together as a clump, and they'd have one person speak for the youth caucus, and we just put that into practice at our own church with even the young ones. They're like, well, we want to get a chance to vote for what you're all voting for, and so I got to present it to the church. This is what the youth vote is, and so there's like these little things that I hope that people can get from whether they read a transcript from what someone said, whether they listen to the podcast. It's going to come out April 1st, everyone. Mark your calendars. And just take that one little thing and just see what happens if you try it on. And that's my hope of doing this all. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And I when I was a religious educator here in a church right outside Seattle, I think it was 2014, the youth group came and said, we want to change the affirmation, which was binary, men, women, sister, brother. And I remember the minister at the time said to me, well, we could take a vote. I said, we're not voting on people's human rights. What we're going to do is have the youth talk to the congregation and say why this will happen. But no one's voting on people's human rights. So they were, felt what was, felt important is to name, this isn't a preference. This is we are asking, this is how to affirm who we are. We have non-binary trans folks of all ages. And in the youth group, they said, we need to change this affirmation that happens every Sunday that the adult church says. And so it took a minute, and it was not, a couple months. It wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't anything. But the youth group presented. And that's where I think RE committees, religious educators, ministers, where we listen and say, yep, this is this. And they were way ahead of, I learned here in Seattle, the word cisgender. I had no idea what it was. And then I learned and keep learning. And so I think, to your point, it's because I do want to name to everyone who may not know, it was the youth in the 40s, the Unitarian and the Universalist youth, who began the merger, who began talking about. And so who knows where we'd be if it wasn't for the Unitarian and the Universalist youth in the 40s and 50s, gathering and being together. And then the merger happened. The adults finally followed suit. I think what you're naming so much. Okay, I'm former Laredo president, Kathy Sagal, said, thank you so much for this convo. I will need if the few youth who most recently served on the UUA board offered input. Oh, that's a good question. Did any youth from the UUA board offer input?
The current youth?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Or I would say, are there any people, I don't know, I don't want to restrict ages, who have been youth representatives to the UUA board
At any point?
At any point? Have any of those provided input into this documentary?
They could have. I'm drawing a blank of people's titles of what they, because a lot of people we talked to did a lot of different, we're on this and this and that. So I'm sure, but I can't think of I know people that worked in the youth office we spoke to, but the UU board, I bet we did, but I was
trying to remember if Betty Jean served on the board, but I don't know. Betty Jean,
maybe, yeah.
Board. I didn't know if she did. But, so we have 3 minutes. This is a great conversation. I'm so excited for more people. Yes, Dante, I see your finger.
Well, I was just going to say, I just appreciated how Lindsay was responding about where do we go, because it just reminded me of the work that Adrienne Marie Brown is doing around the concept of emergence as a strategy of transformation, and that one of her values is small is all, right? Like that she believes the universe is fractal, and that instead of trying to fix all the stuff at the largest level, if we would just do what we can at the micro level, trusting that the universe has a relationship between micro and macro, that we can transform the world by, again, being really hyper local, focusing. And so it's not about fixing all of the big things. It's like doing what, like you said, these 3 things I can do right here through RE in my local, those things matter. And so I just wanted to reiterate.
And letting trans youth know they can go to a UU congregation, letting non-binary youth, I'm proud to be a UU for a lot of reasons. And one of them, the last few years, the effort to help support and move, in some cases, families with trans and non-binary children and youth. I mean, it's, the health of the cell is the health of the organism, to your point, Dante, and Adrienne Marie Brown's work. So we can work on having healthy cells that are congregations, and the CLF is global. So join the, I'm very, right now, I'm sad right now that the CLF doesn't have yet, but we'll bring it back, a youth program. We need to raise a lot more money. So anybody out there who can write us $1 million check, please feel free, clfuu.org.
Or a couple million.
Couple million. Listen, I'm going to name something right now that has nothing to do with youth ministry. Maybe it does. Collectively, Unitarian Universalist endowments add up to $1.1 billion. So I just want to name that. Okay. With that, Lindsay, thank you for highlighting our beautiful, life-giving, life-affirming, because that really came through. It was truly heartwarming. Every person who said, this faith saved my life. Why are you? And the people who saw me, who affirmed me. It was really quite beautiful. So thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully you'll come back again. Absolutely. We'll have you maybe for the launch of the podcast. Feel free to come back.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Oh, and DC and Dante, Happy New Year. And Michael, we miss you. And we will be back next week for another amazing, extraordinary episode of Voices of Unitarian Universalism, where the health of this cell is trying to change the world. So like I did that. Love y'all. Ciao.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my tech skills. Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to everyone who gives generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible.
Visit clfuu.org/give to make a contribution.
We hope you will join us next week for another episode of the Voices of Unitarian Universalists.